Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om. Allah.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony University, and we're speaking again with Reverend J. Robinson. And she's a minister of the Uniting Church, and she works with young people and is a chaplain at Monash University. And you'll be familiar with the fact that our second interview is to illuminate what the spiritual perspective, what changes does that bring into the world through Jay. Now, I've got one of those information pages in front of me that you print off the internet.
Yep.
And it's looking at your experience. It says something about you being a volunteer coordinator for the World Vision Australia.
Yep.
What's that mean?
Well, I started as part-time, went full-time after our baby was born, Stephanie. And basically, I had the great fun of interviewing, training, working with a whole lot of people who were very keen about making a difference in the world.
Right.
Particularly through an organisation like World Vision. So I learnt a lot of the background stuff with World Vision. But I think my main gift, I suppose, for them was I had ability to remember the names and the faces and their gifts and skills.
Okay.
So if things came up, I could connect them to the right sort of opportunities to be used or connect them together. And I've had a few people who have said the stuff that you helped us do has given me a job down the track or has helped me. And we train people to go in, speak at schools around the 40-hour famine and things like that. So the shopping centre things we do. So it was really, really cool. Very much like ministry, really.
Okay.
And I have to say, when I was going through my process to become a minister, one of the things my husband said is, what's the difference between what you're doing now and being a minister?
Right.
Which was a great question because I couldn't answer it.
That is a good question.
Yeah. But it is that style of thing, and that challenge of being a deacon or a minister of the word. And in the Uniting Church, they are the same. Our focus is different.
Okay.
So for a minister of the word, your main focus is around a congregation and caring for them. A deacon is someone who looks out into the community and works in the community a little bit more. So the World Vision stuff was very deacon-like. And I'd have to say my perfect position to have walked out of theological college would have been half-time in a school as a chaplain, half-time in a congregation. Because I actually think you need that support of the people around you to be able to go out and do things. So even though I've come out as a minister of the word, I've still got a lot of deacon in me, I think.
Yes, that passion that you have for going out and the passion that you have for change and for linking people together as well. Yeah, so that's a very nice combination that you come up with there.
So I did a lot of it in World Vision, yes. Yeah.
Now, the training for a deacon and a minister of the word, pretty much the same.
Very much the same, yeah.
What are the limitations?
Minister of the Word has to do a language. Yeah. So we either had to do ancient or biblical Greek, not ancient Greek, biblical Greek or Hebrew.
Right.
I chose biblical Greek. And I'm amazed that I passed that. But I did. And a deacon doesn't need to do the language, but they do a unit in diaconal studies.
Right.
Yeah.
And have you used biblical Greek at all?
No, though I must say my colleague was standing up in church on Pentecost Sunday reading from his biblical Greek Bible, and I said, good on you, you can do that, I'll just sit. It does help with some of the words. Yes. Sometimes you hear some of those words, and my daughter's done some ancient Egyptian, so every now and again they connect in ways.
Yes. It gives you a bit of an idea of the longevity of the whole thing. Now, the Tertiary Campus Ministry Association, TMCA, what's that? You're president of it.
I am president of it. I fell into that one. When I began as a university chaplain, one of the things I was aware, or I appeared to be, is that there wasn't a lot of collegial support in doing what you're doing. Okay. When I went on campus, I'm at the Peninsula campus for Monash. They had not had a chaplain on campus before. Oh, okay. So I had to start everything from scratch. I eventually heard about the TCMA, Tertiary Campus Ministry Association, and that is the only professional body within Australia for tertiary campus ministries, or university chaplains, or higher education chaplains. I went along to a conference, and as I have said to you earlier, I'm always one to put my hand up and say I'll get involved, and I got onto the committee, the executive, because I believe in this stuff, and if I can make better connections with other people too, that helps me, and I learn from them, and I always pinch as many ideas as I possibly can.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. And it just so happened the second year I was there, they had a challenge with personalities. As human beings, we always have challenges with personalities.
Yes.
And they asked me if I would stand in the role of president, to which I said yes, I would. And so I've been in president now for 4 years. Yes, coming up to the end of my 4th year.
Yes.
And we're growing again.
Right.
The numbers have gone down, and I'm hopefully that relational idea and openness and not trying to be too precious about an organisation is working.
And it includes, well, that's good, because it's a critical thing to happen.
Yeah.
And does that include all chaplains?
All chaplains of all faith.
Yes.
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 And that is a challenge, because we have the predominant number of chaplains are Christian.
Yes.
But it's so important to have the Muslims and the Baha'is and the Buddhists and all of them there to hear all of those experiences, because that's the students we talk to.
Yes.
You know, we're not in Christian universities.
No.
And lots of young people at that age are asking questions and trying to find some faith connection.
So they could be popping up and all over the place, the same person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So coordination's critical.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a matter of being in the right place at the right time, and we're out of time at the moment. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Reverend J. Robinson. She's a minister of the Uniting Church, and for this segment it's important. She's a chaplain at Monash University. Jay, on this list we've got here is that you're also a youth minister and chaplain at the Uniting Church in Frankston.
Yep.
How does that all fit together? The youth part of it, why is that separated off youth minister? What's that?
The main thing, I suppose, I was called to this position as my first position out of college. It's also the first position like it that the Uniting Church has had in Victoria.
Really?
So brand spanking new in all areas. The congregation wanted someone who would particularly focus on their young people.
Okay.
Someone that was able to do some creative worship and get involved in that side, but particularly to sit alongside young people, help them explore faith, and all of those sorts of things, baptisms, confirmations, whatever, and also then reach out into the community to the young people out there. And having Monash University Peninsula campus just 5 minutes from the church meant the two worked very well together.
Okay.
I know a lot of people said, 2 half-time jobs, it's going to be more than a full-time. And surprisingly, I've managed it really well, which I feel very chuffed about. That's good.
Yes, very relieved.
Yes. But they do link in, very much so. we've got a batch of our kids at the church who are now at university age, and there are 2 or 3 who go to Peninsula campus. I've been able to welcome some other students who are at Monash and have come from interstate, from Uniting Churches, and they've connected into our church family and community. That's taken 6 years to happen, but it's happening. And so it's just being aware of those, where young people are at, and making sure that people hear them, that there's advocacy, and they're learning, they're being fed, and I think that's the most important thing.
And as you related to before, is that they are more than just a token, that they
Absolutely.
are actually present and regarded as being present.
Very much so.
Part of what you do, I think, is also a blog, The Skinny. And it just they're a very nice looking blog and well put together. And in this particular one, which is not that long ago, on the 9th of April, you actually quote Romans 8:6-11, which I shan't go through. However, you put a reflection in there, and the reflection is, how might you give expression to a, quote, spiritual life, close quote, in the context where you live? Now, that was directed towards youth, I suspect. And how would you like them to answer a question like that? What was the response?
I haven't had a direct response. I would have loved a direct response, but
Yes.
I do get that question from young people. How do I be a Christian at school? How do I be a Christian? I've had a conversation at the university about how do I be a Christian in a school as a teacher, where, particularly a state school, where you can't say anything about your faith. So we talk a lot about what you are doing rather than the words you say.
Right.
I've also had groups, or there are 2 Christian groups on campus, and one of them has come to me and said, how do we save the campus? You're going to save the campus. How do we talk to Australians about being Christian? And I said, don't talk to us about being Christian. Show us how to be Christian. Make sure that there's something in there that we see that we want to ask you about, and then go. So it's that action, that doing things. I'm part of a program called Kids Hope, which was through World Vision, where it links a congregation with a primary school. And then a mentor out of that congregation comes and sees one child of that primary school, 1 hour per week. And that child is chosen for a number of different reasons. But of course, being a state school, we don't talk Christianity, but we've given that child attention and love and connection by showing them Christ's love and not talking about it. And I think that's the big thing. It's the showing. It's how it affects what we do, what we say, but it's our morals behind, for want of a better word, behind what we do.
Absolutely. I'm searching through my greying cobweb memory to find and I think it was St. Francis who said that you should preach often, but use words only when necessary.
I think you're right, and I would agree with that.
Which is what you're putting into practice there. Yes.
Yep.
Have you had any feedback in relation to, or what's the outcome been of this youth movement? Are you getting more leaders? Are there people coming together?
It depends. Within the Uniting Church, I think we struggle with our young people, very much so. And some states are doing it better. And here in Victoria, we've got some really good pockets of things happening. I think our biggest problem is numbers.
Yes.
And there's not a lot of them on the ground that have time to put into changing the church. But the ones that are there, I can have conversations with, and we sit and we talk, and it's really good to see that passion.
Yes.
And that's what they run with. So it gets there.
Yeah, I guess it does. And you're in a very good position to sort of encourage them to listen to that voice, to listen to that nudging.
Yes, very
go
much
this
so.
way, do this.
Yep.
So in answer to the question of how do I behave, how do I save the campus, to come back and say, well, you behave. How you behave is how you save. Now, there's a good line. How you behave is how you save.
I like that one, yeah.
It's poetic, so you can have that.
Thank you.
For free. No, I think we'll take a break, and we'll come back to more about chaplaincy, because it's quite fascinating.
Cool.
We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Reverend J. Robinson, Uniting Church minister, and what we're going to discuss now is about chaplaincy at Monash University. Jay, that's a very sensitive and important role, and as you discussed before, your position in the TMCA, you're right across bringing those sorts of things together. There's some fairly contentious issues spinning around the community, like, for example, abortion, homosexuality, and a million others. But those first two would be the sorts of things I'd expect university students might sort of encounter. Do you come across that, where they'll come to you with that?
I do. I've got a couple of stories. Perhaps one I'd like to start with first is I had a student come to me one day, caught me in the corridor and said, I want to ask you a couple of questions. It'll only take 15, 20 minutes. To which my usual response is, well, I guarantee no answers at all. But he came to me saying that he'd just been told by a Christian group connected with the university that because he was wondering about his sexuality, that he was going to be damned forever.
Goodness gracious.
And I said to this poor guy who walked in with a load on his shoulders, I said, that's not the God I know. And we talked about sin and all sorts of things. Fantastic discussion, the sorts of ones you go home and think, oh, finally, I'm talking this stuff with uni students. But he walked out of my office 10 feet taller. And to be able to do that is amazing. But unis are struggling at the moment with those sorts of things, because we all know of budget cuts and things like that, and unfortunately student services are one of the first things that get cut. And it's not that easy to find the right people to talk through some of those issues. And to be a chaplain on a campus, you've got to be ready to talk through that. And you've got to sit firm in your own faith and understanding, but you've still got to respect and honour the person in front of you. We're not there to judge.
No.
Absolutely not there to judge. And it's a really important thing in chaplaincy, I believe.
The extension of compassion.
Absolutely. We have to be multi-faith. I know there are some chaplains who will only deal with their particular faith denomination, but I believe we have to be multi-faith. And with that goes the respect and the listening and the understanding, and not being scared to say, hey, I'm a Christian, I don't understand what you mean there, or that's not my knowledge or experience. So then you need to have your networks to be able to talk to the local Jewish person or Hindu or whoever it may be. But it's being open and compassionate.
And so is that a frequent experience of having someone sitting in front of you and saying, well, I think I'm a Hindu, but maybe I'm not, or I think I'm a Buddhist, or whatever? We
don't get a lot of it. It's probably a lot more Christian baggage, if I can say that. I have had a student that came to me about trouble they were having in a teaching round, and as some conversations happen, you talk fluff for quite a lot, and 5 minutes before you're due to finish, the deep stuff gets in. And it came out that this student was worried about the way they respected or did not respect their parents. Down from the 10 Commandments, you must honour your mother and father. And this was a situation, I won't go into details, where that student felt they couldn't honour their parents. And was that student then a bad person?
Right.
So you come across, it's more cultural understandings, the stuff that is underpinning your faith journeys, probably. Yeah.
But this clearly has a job to do in more than just faith. This is actually talking about place in life in a way. It's critical building blocks.
Yep. Yeah.
That's very, very important and troubling to realise that it may be cut back.
Yes.
Yeah, we won't go there. I've got in front of me here too chaplaincy on a peninsular campus, and it says our campus chaplains provide, and it lists about 8 points there. And the first is a community focus for developing the spiritual life of students and staff on campus. Yep. How does the and staff come in?
The biggest thing is presence and knowing that you were there. I remember having a lady one of the staff members come to see me, and she had some questions around where she was going, and she said, "I'm looking for a woman of God." And I all of a sudden realised we have one on campus.
That's good.
And that's wonderful.
That's right.
So that's great. You do it without noticing.
Yeah.
One of the things I do on campus is we run a breakfast once a week during semester, where this semester we've been feeding 260 odd students and staff a week.
Right.
I was outside around the barbecue where we cook our pancakes, and one of the staff members brought up a new staff member, introduced me and said, "This is our chaplain." And that meant heaps. It's not the chaplain, this is our chaplain.
Yes.
I've done some marriage stuff. I've actually blessed a marriage.
Right.
And helped somebody work through some of the understandings of what was going on as that marriage. You know how sometimes when you get ready for getting married, things go downhill and on a rocky road? So we walked through some of that.
As fear sets in.
Exactly, yes. I've done memorial services. We had a student that was killed overseas, one of the residential students, and the people at residential came to me and said, "Can you put something together?" Right. They're the things you treasure because you know that you're needed. Yeah. And they know that you're there. Very first year, and this is what I think established me on campus, we had a student suicide.
Yes.
In the first year I was there, between the semesters, and they needed to tell the student body when they came back to the first lecture of the second semester, and I was there as someone, I just said, "Here I am."
That was clearly your time, and we're out of it. But what I'd like to thank you so much for coming in, but
Pleasure.
also perhaps we could carry on at some later stage.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, because there's a lot more we can talk about. Thank you so much, John.
Pleasure.
Thank you for watching. You've been watching Harmony and Diversity, and we'll be back next week. Bye for now.